I'm beginning to believe the only person that can beat Shakur Stevenson is himself. It might be size, that could be a factor, but it's starting to feel like if Shakur Stevenson has a full training camp, does proper preparation, and is mentally engaged in a fight, it's just not really possible to beat him if you're the same size as him. Stevenson beats Teofimo Lopez. He becomes a 4 division world champion. And the crazy thing about it is, he has dominated essentially every fight he's been in. You could argue about the validity of his titles, but honestly, winning belts against Joet Gonzalez, Oscar Valdez, Edwin de los Santos, and now Teofimo Lopez is a sneaky solid resume. His resume consists of guys who are at the top of the division or held a title during an established run. And he has yet to target outside of Lopez, the big names. And part of the problem with that is, or why that has been the thing, is he's a high risk, low reward fight. He's the type of fighter who's extremely disciplined, knows how to use his distance. And by what I mean by that is his greatest attribute is he can keep fighters away at range. He's able to use his left hand. He jabs you. He's southpaw, so he'll jab you. And then when you try to get closer, his left hand, he can really leverage it and hit you very hard. So he's able to keep guys off balance and not wanting to overcommit to shots. And because of that, sometimes you get faced criticism, like in the De Los Santos fight. He's extremely patient. And because he's so patient, people don't really get kind of some of the discipline that he has to fight so patient, because what you see with him is a fighter who is not going to overcommit to shots. He's not going to overextend. You're just going to see someone who's really willing to fight his fight. And there's a level of maturity in that and an identity in that. Against Teofimo Lopez, I was thrilled. I'd seen both of these guys during the come up. I knew Shakur was going to probably win the fight pretty easily, but at the same time, Teofimo Lopez has a bit of magic to him. Shakur took the magic away about 3 rounds in when it was clear that Teofimo was not going to be able to adjust. And in many ways, when you look at these two, you have contrasting personalities, but you also look at their career trajectories in another way. It's hard to look at Shakur Stevenson and not say this could be the best fighter in the world in not that long of time, like 2-3 years. This could be the best guy. The fight we all wanted to see was Shakur versus Gervonta Davis. That fight seems like it's left the building. I don't have the same interest for Gervonta Davis, but it doesn't seem like he's as focused of a fighter anymore. It doesn't seem like his life is in boxing anymore. It doesn't seem like he wants to do it. So why make a fight like that? And then you look at Teofimo Lopez, and I hate to say it, but there's a part of me that wonders what could have been. He has wins over Vasyl Lomachenko, and he has a win over Josh Taylor, but he has a lot of really odd performances, and you wonder if in 2018 or about 2018 when he beats Diego Magdaleno, if things just went different, what would his career have looked like? If it didn't have such highs and lows, such extremes all over the place, it just feels like he's a fighter who's really had high moments. I think he's still, to me, a Hall of Famer. It'll be interesting how his career finishes out. But he's starting to feel like a Hector Camacho-like figure where he's had special moments in his career, and you always believe he can do it. But then once things get going wrong, they go really wrong. So for me, it's like the tale of two careers. And then it goes to another part. Man, do we need Top Rank. Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, Bruce Carrington, Keyshawn Davis, Sanders Zayas, they all fought last night. They were all in interesting fights. They were all developed under the Top Rank system. For American boxing, at least for right now, Top Rank is the lifeblood. And when Top Rank isn't around or doesn't have developmental deals, it really hurts boxing in America, because for 20 or 30 years, they've been one of the strongest at not just putting on fights, but building developmental talent. And that's the thing I think people sleep on is not a lot of promoters are able to elevate fighters and get them into marquee positions. So that's something it made me think about. In the co-feature, Keyshawn Davis won, and well, he didn't just win, he stopped Jermaine Ortiz. It was an all right performance. The thing with Davis is there's a lot of emotion he brings to the ring. It's a lot of, I want to prove this, I want to prove that. And that's good. A young person should always have ambitions and goals and stuff. But in Jermaine Ortiz, to me, there were two schools of thoughts for this fight. It's Jermaine's going to give Keyshawn a really, really hard fight, and people are sleeping on it. Or there's the school of thought that Jermaine Ortiz has also had a lot of really hard fights, and he might be kind of at the end. And it was kind of this, both were true. That wasn't a mutually exclusive statement. Jermaine Ortiz did make the fight difficult for Keyshawn Davis. Keyshawn Davis, kind of like Shakur Stevenson, but in a different way, has a good sense of getting full extension on his punches to land more thudding and clubbing blows. He's got good reflexes and can really get guys at the end. He's not as disciplined and defensively sound or crafty. He's more so a come-forward fighter, and I think that comes from the region he's from originally, which is the DMV. He's a fighter who, gets going downhill and puts a lot of pressure on guys, but he does it through craft and skill rather than relentless aggression. Kind of sometimes gets caught between styles where he wants to box and bang. With Ortiz kind of lulled him into a very, very slow fight. And then Davis in the second half of the fight, I don't know what really happened, if Ortiz kind of slowed down, if Davis adjusted, but he started really putting it on him, which led to a 12th round stoppage. To my estimations, that's the first time Ortiz has been stopped. I'm not fact-checking it, but I'm nearly positive of that. And it's something, right? Davis enters the junior welterweight division, calls out Devin Haney. Devin Haney had issues with another boxer at the weigh-in. He's got his own stuff going. But sure, that would be a good fight for all of us to see. Davis is just going to be up and down. It's hard to see someone who brings this much emotion, for better or worse, to consistently put on high-level performances. It's too draining. It's too exhausting. So I think that hopefully we see him in a good fight later this year, and then it's just a wait and see, because the big thing for Davis is he has to mature. It's just point blank period. He has to mature, and he has to get to a point where the stuff outside of the ring isn't as much of a focus as his achievements. So we got to see where Keyshawn Davis is going. Bruce Carrington probably had the most magnificent performance. He had a back and forth fight with Carlos Castro. And then, like Sergio Mora put on X, it was a storybook finish. He lands a highlight reel knockout. He goes out. Everyone's it's a sensational. It's one of the better knockouts of the month. It honestly is the best knockout of the month. The only reason I think Dalton Smith Subriel Matisse is a better knockout is because of the symbolic nature of him knocking out Matisse, a legendary power puncher who was a boogeyman. Castro, quality fighter, but I think most people expected Bruce Carrington to win this fight. Hometown fight. He faced some resistance, gets a big knockout, and I think, it really meant a lot to him. Now it's going to be exciting to see Carrington in with his contemporaries. There's guys like Nick Ball, how long Espinoza stays there. There's always good featherweight fighters, and I'm really curious to see how Carrington stacks up. He's quite obviously a star. He has the ability. He has the skill. Now it's about the hardest part in the sport, longevity. You have a title. Titles are coveted. How long can you stay atop the sport? That's when you really start to exercise just how great you are. Kingsley eBay versus Jarrell Big Baby Miller was a completely awful fight. It was highlighted mostly by eBay landing a punch and Miller losing his hair, which I believe was a toupee, and that was just odd. Miller won a really boring split decision, and the life goes on. Who knows where that fight leads for either guy. It just didn't feel like a 10-round fight, to be quite honest. Undercard action, Austin Ammo Williams looked really limited again against Wendy Toussaint. Wendy Toussaint took the fight on basically 24-hour notice, uh, didn't have a full camp, and Ammo Williams was struggling to cut the ring off and just loading up on power punches. I think it's really good for him that he didn't fight Carlos Adames on this night, because Adames, who had to withdraw for medical reasons, he has more skill and he's able to punch really hard. So I think that would have been a rough one. And then I can't ever say the guy's name, but the Saudi Arabian fighter, who's been broadcast on these fights, he lost to Kevin Castillo, kind of a rough one for him. He drops Kevin Castillo in the first round, and then Castillo just rallies back and beats him up in kind of a dominant performance. So that's my thoughts on the card.